You know that feeling when everything finally falls into place? That's exactly how I felt standing in my brand new apartment. After 6 long years of hard work, I could finally say I owned my own home. My name is Julie, I'm 29, and this is my story. I remember the day I got promoted 2 years ago, like it was yesterday. My boss called me into his office, and I thought I was in trouble. Instead, he handed me a contract with a significantly higher salary. From that day forward, I lived like a monk, no fancy clothes, no expensive dinners out, nothing. Every single cent went straight into my savings account. But I'll be honest, it wasn't just my savings that made this possible. A year ago, my grandmother passed away. She was my mother's mother, and she left me $150,000 in her will. That money, combined with everything I'd saved, meant I could finally stop dreaming and start house hunting. When I found this 2-bedroom apartment, I knew it was the one. Not too big, not too small, just perfect. The best part? No mortgage. The realtor actually did a double take when I said I wanted to pay in full. The look on her face when I signed those papers? Priceless. I couldn't help myself. As soon as I got the keys, I took about 1 million photos and posted them on social media. My friends went crazy with the likes and comments. Congratulations, Julie, living the dream. When's the housewarming party? It felt amazing to have so many people genuinely happy for me. Then my phone rang. The name on the screen made my stomach drop. Dad. Julie, he said, his voice as dry as sandpaper. I need you to come over for lunch next Saturday. That call brought back everything I'd been trying to forget. See, my mom died when I was 9, cancer. It ripped our family apart, but Dad, well, he didn't stay single for long. Within a year, he married Sharon, and a year after that, they had my half-sister. Sharon never liked me much, even before she had her own kid. But after? That's when things got really bad. Suddenly, there were all these new rules, and funny enough, they only seemed to apply to me. Julie, you need to be quieter. Julie, you can't have friends over. Julie, turn that music down right now. Meanwhile, my half-sister got everything. New clothes? She got them first. Latest toys? They were hers before she could even ask. Family trips? They planned them around her schedule. It was like I'd become a ghost in my own home, floating around while Dad and Sharon doted on their precious daughter. Sometimes I wondered if they even remembered I existed. Thank God for Grandma Margaret. I don't think I would have survived those years without her. As things got worse at home, I started spending more and more time at her house. She lived just 15 minutes away by bike, and her door was always open for me. Her house became my safe haven. My cousins, Jack, Emma, and little Tommy, were often there too. They were my Aunt Sarah's kids, and unlike my half-sister, they actually treated me like family. We'd spend hours playing board games, watching movies, or just hanging out in Grandma's backyard. Meanwhile, back at my father's house, things were getting worse. My sister Amy had turned into a nightmare. She'd hide my things, accidentally spill drinks on my homework, and even started spreading rumors about me at school. But somehow, I was always the one who got blamed. Julie, why are you making your sister upset? Sharon would demand. Julie, stop antagonizing Amy, Dad would echo, not even bothering to hear my side. The day I got my college acceptance letter was probably the happiest day of my life. Not because of the school itself, though getting a partial scholarship was amazing, but because it meant I could finally leave. The college was 3 states away, and Grandma helped me pay what the scholarship didn't cover. College was like breathing fresh air after being underwater for years. I threw myself into my studies, called Grandma at least twice a week, and tried to forget about my father's family. Dad rarely called anyway, he was too busy with his real daughter. When he did call, our conversations were short and superficial. After graduation, I had to come back to my home state. I had a job offer from Thompson and Mills, and it was too good to pass up. I assumed I'd stay with Dad and Sharon until I found my own place, but Sharon quickly shut that down. "Oh, we gave your room to Amy," she said with fake sympathy when I called. "She needs the extra space for her things. You understand, don't you?" Dad didn't say a word to defend me. Not one word. Thankfully, Grandma welcomed me with open arms. I stayed with her while I started my new job, and after a few months, I had enough saved up to rent my own little apartment. It wasn't much, but it was mine. Then, a year ago, Grandma passed away. It was sudden, a stroke in her sleep. She left her house to my cousins, which made sense since they lived closer and had always helped maintain it. To me, she left $150,000, money she'd been saving her whole life, she wrote in her will, for the granddaughter who reminds me so much of her mother. This past year has been quiet. Dad and his perfect family haven't bothered much with me. They didn't even invite me for Christmas, not that I was surprised. I spent it with Aunt Sarah and my cousins instead, and honestly, it was the best Christmas I'd had in years. That Saturday, I drove to my father's house, with a knot in my stomach. The closer I got to their neighborhood, the tighter it became. I checked my watch, 11:57. Still early, but I'd rather be early than give Sharon another reason to complain about me. I rang the doorbell, counting the seconds until someone answered. Dad opened the door, his face unreadable. "Come in," he said, stepping aside. "No hello, no how are you? Just come in." They were all waiting in the living room, Sharon perched on her favorite armchair like a queen on her throne, and Amy sprawled across the couch, tapping away at her phone. Sharon barely acknowledged my presence with a curt nod. Amy didn't even look up. "Sit down, Julie," Dad said, gesturing to the lonely chair across from them. I felt like I was being set up for an interrogation. The silence was thick enough to cut with a knife. Dad cleared his throat, once, twice, before finally speaking. "Amy has graduated high school," he announced, as if this was breaking news. "She's enrolled in the local college." I nodded, not sure where this was going. Was I supposed to congratulate her? Send her a graduation gift? I hadn't even been invited to the ceremony. "That's nice," I said carefully, when it became clear they were waiting for some response. "She needs somewhere to live," Dad continued, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere above my head. "Somewhere close to campus." Another pause. Sharon was nodding along like one of those dashboard bobbleheads. "And well," Dad shifted in his seat, "your apartment would be perfect. It's in an ideal location, close to the college." "I'm not looking for a roommate," I said slowly, still trying to process what was happening. Dad shook his head, finally meeting my eyes. "You misunderstand, Julie. We're not asking you to let Amy live with you, we're asking you to give her your apartment." I actually laughed, a short, sharp sound that died as soon as I saw their faces. They were serious. They were actually serious. "Give her my apartment?" I repeated, certain I must have heard wrong. "As in, give up my home? The one I just bought? The one I worked years to afford?" "Yes," Dad said firmly, like he was explaining something very simple to a very stupid child. "Amy needs it more than you do." I sat there, staring at them, wondering if I'd somehow slipped into an alternate reality. My apartment. The one I'd saved every penny for. The one I'd bought with my inheritance from Grandma. They wanted me to just give it away? The same Amy who was still refusing to even look at me? "She deserves it more than you do," Sharon said, her voice dripping with that same condescension she'd used on me since I was 9 years old. "After all, what have you done to deserve such a nice place? Living all alone in a 2-bedroom apartment, while my poor Amy has to consider student housing?" I shot to my feet so fast, my chair almost tipped over. "Are you all completely insane?" My voice came out stronger than I expected. "I'm not giving up my apartment. Not now, not ever. I bought that place with my own money." Dad's face darkened. "Your own money? Your grandmother gave you $150,000. That's hardly your own money." Something snapped inside me. All those years of staying quiet, of taking their abuse, of trying to be the bigger person, gone in an instant. My grandmother? I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. You mean my mother's mother? The woman who actually cared about me when you were too busy playing happy family with your new wife and daughter? That grandmother? The one who has absolutely no relation to Amy whatsoever? Amy chose that moment to finally look up from her phone, her face scrunching up in that familiar way that always preceded her crocodile tears. You're such a terrible sister, she wailed, right on cue. You've always been so mean to me. You've never loved me. Julie, Dad said, his voice hard, I'm very disappointed in you. This is not how we raised you. You didn't raise me at all, the words exploded out of me. You checked out the moment Mom died and Sharon moved in. Don't you dare talk about how you raised me. I grabbed my purse and headed for the door, my whole body shaking. Behind me, I could hear Amy's theatrical sobs, Sharon's comforting murmurs, and Dad calling my name, but I didn't stop. I couldn't get out of there fast enough. I thought that would be the end of it. I really did. But the next morning, my phone rang, Dad again. Julie, listen to me, he started before I could even say hello. You're the older sister, you need to help Amy. This is what family does. I almost laughed. Family? Now you want to talk about family? Where was this family spirit when Sharon kicked me out of my room? When Amy was making my life hell? When you didn't even invite me to Christmas? That's different, he insisted. You're being unreasonable. Amy needs. You're crazy, I cut him off, actually crazy if you think I'm going to give my apartment to someone who spent her entire life trying to hurt me. Don't call me again about this. I hung up, but it wasn't over. Within minutes, my phone started buzzing with messages from Sharon. You've always been jealous of Amy. You're just like your mother, selfish and ungrateful. After everything we've done for you. I stared at the messages, feeling a strange sense of calm wash over me. Dad kept calling throughout the day, but I stopped answering. What was the point? The conversation would just go in circles, him demanding I give up my home, me refusing, him guilt-tripping me about family obligations. A week after the confrontation, I decided to go ahead with my housewarming party. My apartment was filled with the people who actually mattered, friends from work, old college buddies, and my cousins. The sound of genuine laughter and conversation felt like a cleansing ritual, washing away the toxicity of the previous weekend. Julie, Emma called from the kitchen. We're running low on ice. I was heading to the freezer when my cousin Jack grabbed my arm. His face was serious, unusual for him, as he's typically the family clown. Hey, I need to show you something, he said quietly, guiding me toward the hallway. You might want to sit down for this. I perched on the edge of my new ottoman as Jack pulled out his phone. He hesitated for a moment, then handed it to me. I was at Lorenzo's last night with some friends, he explained. Look who I saw in the back booth. The first photo made my heart stop. There was Sharon, my stepmother, sitting in a dimly lit restaurant booth. But she wasn't alone. A man I'd never seen before had his arm around her, and they were kissing. Not a friendly peck, but the kind of kiss that leaves no doubt about the nature of a relationship. More photos followed. Sharon laughing, her hand on the man's chest. The man feeding her a bite of dessert. Their fingers intertwined on the table. They looked comfortable together, intimate. Like lovers who'd done this 1,000 times before. I couldn't believe what I was seeing, Jack continued. I know I shouldn't have taken pictures, but... Send them to me, I interrupted, my voice barely a whisper, please. After the party ended and my last guest left, I sat in my dark living room, staring at the photos Jack had sent. Who was this man? I needed to know. It didn't take long to find him. Sharon wasn't exactly subtle, he was right there in her Facebook friends list. Robert Mitchell. I clicked on his profile and felt my world tilt on its axis. Robert Mitchell had been working at Riverside Insurance Company for 20 years. The same company where Sharon worked. The same company she'd been at since before she married my father. I scrolled through his photos, going back years. There were company picnics, office parties, holiday celebrations. And in so many of them, there she was. Sometimes just in the background, sometimes partially out of frame, but I recognized her. 20 years of photos, showing a relationship that clearly went far beyond professional courtesy. One photo from 15 years ago caught my eye. A woman in a red dress, her face turned away from the camera, sitting on a park bench with Robert. The caption read, "Perfect Sunday afternoon." The woman's hair, her posture, her favorite red dress that she still had in her closet, it was Sharon. 3 years into her marriage to my father. I opened another tab and searched for more recent photos of Robert Mitchell. As his face filled my screen, something else hit me like a physical blow. Those eyes. That nose. The way his mouth curved up slightly at the corners even when he wasn't really smiling. I pulled up a recent photo of Amy on my phone and held it next to the screen. The resemblance was undeniable. How had I never seen it before? Amy looked nothing like my father, she never had. But she was practically a carbon copy of Robert Mitchell. The truth was burning a hole in my pocket. For 2 days, I walked around in a daze, carrying the weight of what I'd discovered. Every time I looked at the photos, I felt sick to my stomach. 20 years of deception. And my father, completely blind to it all. When his number flashed on my phone screen again, I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Julie, his voice was stern, authoritative, the voice he used when he thought he was being a father. We need to have a serious conversation. Come to the house. Now. I considered telling him everything right then. Blurting out the truth about his wife's 2-decade affair, about Amy's real father. But some instinct told me to wait. "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said instead. They were waiting in the living room, just Dad and Sharon this time. "Sit down, Julie," Dad commanded, and I complied, playing the dutiful daughter one last time. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Your behavior has been disappointing," he began, pacing in front of the fireplace. "This selfishness, this refusal to help your sister, it stops now." I watched Sharon nodding along, and my stomach turned. The audacity of this woman, demanding I give up my apartment to her illegitimate daughter. "I've made a decision," Dad continued, his voice hard. "Either you sign over your apartment to Amy, or I'm writing you out of my will, completely. No inheritance, no family money, nothing." Sharon's face lit up with triumph. They really thought they had me cornered. I forced my expression into one of shock and distress. "I need to think about this," I whispered, watching Sharon's smile grow wider. "Good girl," Dad said, his voice softening slightly. "You take some time to think about what really matters." Could I use the bathroom first?" I asked, making my voice small and shaky. Dad waved his hand dismissively, and I hurried upstairs. But instead of going to the bathroom, I slipped into Amy's room, my old room. Everything was pink and perfect, just like Amy's entire life had been. Her hairbrush sat on the vanity, full of long dark strands that matched Robert Mitchell's exactly. My hands shaking slightly, I pulled a small plastic bag from my pocket and carefully collected several strands. Next, I crept into Dad's bedroom. His comb was right where it always was, on his dresser, next to his wedding photo. The irony wasn't lost on me as I collected his hair into a second bag. That night, I researched DNA testing facilities. The kind that did paternity tests, the kind that would hold up in court if needed. It wasn't cheap, nearly $2,000 for rush processing. But it would be worth every penny. The next morning, I walked into the facility with my 2 carefully labeled bags. The technician explained the process, had me fill out forms, and assured me I'd have results in a few weeks. The DNA test results arrived in a plain white envelope. My hands trembled as I opened it, though I already knew what it would say. The clinical language was unmistakable. The alleged father is excluded as the biological father of the tested child. The probability of paternity is 0%. That evening, as if on cue, my phone rang. Sharon's name flashed on the screen. "We're tired of waiting," she snapped, not bothering with hello. "Your father and I need your decision about the apartment within the next few days. Otherwise, you can kiss your inheritance goodbye." I kept my voice steady, calm. "Actually, I've been thinking about everything. I'll come over for dinner this Saturday. We can discuss it then." Saturday evening, I drove to their house again, the DNA test results tucked safely in my purse. This time, the knot in my stomach wasn't from anxiety, it was anticipation. They were all waiting in the living room, looking like cats who'd cornered a mouse. Sharon was practically glowing with triumph. Amy sprawled on the couch, examining her manicure with a smirk. Dad stood by the fireplace, trying to look stern but barely containing his satisfaction. Finally, Amy drawled, "Took you long enough to make the right decision." Dad stepped forward, placing a hand on my shoulder. "I'm glad you've changed your mind, Julie. This is what family is all about, helping each other." I shrugged off his hand. "I haven't changed my mind. I'm not giving up my apartment. Not now, not ever." "You selfish brat," Dad's face turned red. "That's it. You're out of the will. Everything goes to Amy, my real daughter, the one who actually understands family loyalty." I couldn't help it, I laughed. The sound echoed through the room, making them all stare at me like I'd lost my mind. "Your real daughter," I reached into my purse. "That's interesting, Dad. Because I have something you need to see." I pulled out the envelope and held it out to him. He snatched it, glaring at me as he yanked the papers out. "Read it," I said softly, "read it out loud." He began reading, his voice confident at first. "DNA relationship testing report." Then his face started to change. The color drained from his cheeks as he reached the crucial line. The paper shook in his hands. Sharon made a sound like she'd been punched in the gut. This is a lie," she screamed, her face contorted with panic. "She forged these documents. She's trying to turn you against me. Against us." "I have more proof," I said quietly, pulling out my phone while Sharon continued to scream about forgery. My fingers shook slightly as I pulled up the photos Jack had taken. "Look." The room fell silent as I held up the screen. There was Sharon, locked in an intimate embrace with Robert Mitchell. The timestamp showed it was from just last week. Sharon crumpled onto the couch, her mask of superiority finally cracking. "David, please. I can explain." "Explain?" he roared, making us all jump. "Explain what? How long?" 20 years, she whispered, tears streaming down her face. He's my colleague at Riverside Insurance. Amy, Robert is her father." The silence that followed was deafening. I watched my father's world collapse in real time, 20 years of lies crashing down around him. Without another word, I picked up my purse and walked out, leaving them to their reckoning. The next week passed in a blur. I went to work, came home, tried to process everything that had happened. I heard through the grapevine that Sharon and Amy had moved out, that Dad had hired the city's best divorce lawyer, that the scandal had spread through their social circle like wildfire. When Dad's number appeared on my phone a week later, I almost didn't answer. But something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe hope, made me pick up. "Can we meet?" His voice sounded rough, tired. "Coffee at Carson's Cafe?" I found him at a corner table, staring into a cold cup of coffee. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in a week, unshaven, shoulders slumped, wedding ring conspicuously absent. "I filed for divorce," he said without preamble. "Sharon and Amy are gone. I told them to get out of my house. I've stopped Amy's college payments too. Why should I pay for another man's child?" I sat silently, stirring my latte, waiting. "Julie, his voice cracked. "I've been a terrible father to you." "Yes," I agreed calmly. "You have. All these years, I favored Amy over you. I let Sharon treat you like an outsider in your own home. I didn't protect you, didn't support you. I failed you in every way possible. You did, I said, and you never would have realized it if you hadn't found out about Amy. If she had been your biological daughter, you would have kept treating me like a second-class citizen. You would have taken my apartment from me and given it to her without a second thought. He flinched at my words, but didn't deny them. Please, he whispered, reaching across the table. I pulled my hands back before he could touch them. Please give me a chance to make it right. Let me try to be the father you deserved all along. That was 3 months ago. We meet sometimes now, coffee, lunch, careful conversations about safe topics. He tries to make up for lost time, telling me stories about Mom that he'd never shared before, asking about my work, my friends, my life. But full forgiveness? I'm not there yet. Maybe I never will be. 20 years of rejection and neglect left scars that won't heal overnight, if they ever heal at all. As for Sharon and Amy, I hear things occasionally through the gossip mill. They moved in with Robert Mitchell, I think. Started living the life they'd been secretly planning all along. But honestly, I don't really care. They're part of a chapter in my life that's closed now.
My name is Jenny, and I am a 27-year-old office worker. I just got married 6 months ago. I met my husband, Victor, at a barbecue party thrown by a couple of colleagues from work. It seems that the event was set up as a place to meet, now that I think about it. A colleague invited some female friends from the office, and her boyfriend gathered friends from his student days. My father is the president of a company, and I was raised strictly since I was a child, with a curfew even through high school. I had never been to a mixer, and places with many people or many men made me nervous. That day, I was mostly talking to female friends from work when Victor first spoke to me. Jenny, the meat is ready over here. You haven't eaten much, have you? Don't hold back, here you go. With a smile, he created a very easygoing atmosphere, and we quickly hit it off, and our conversation flowed smoothly. Thanks to him being good at livening things up, I naturally joined everyone's circle, and the day passed quickly because I had so much fun. On the way home that day, he asked for my contact details, and the next day, I received a message saying, "Yesterday was fun. I want to meet just the two of us next time." I mustered up the courage to reply, "Me too." And soon my phone rang, and he said, "Really? I'm so happy. When shall we meet? Where do you want to go?" My heart raced during such exchanges. Even when he asked me out at the end of our first date, I was so happy I immediately said yes. After several dates, he was driving me home one day, and when we arrived at the gate of my house, he seemed a bit surprised. I heard at the barbecue that Jenny was a young lady, but, wow, such a mansion. Is your father the president or something? Yes, kind of. Do you know the Hansen Group? Hansen. Who doesn't know it? Wow, so Jenny is the daughter of a big corporate president. I'm not really a lady. Really, should someone like me even be dating you? If you have a fiancé or something, please tell me sooner. He said this seriously. What are you talking about? There's no such person, and I want to marry someone I love. I have 2 brothers, so I won't be taking over anything. Really? Really? Such conversations were only for that moment, and even after knowing about my family background, our relationship continued smoothly. And about a year later, he proposed, and I introduced him to my parents, and we got married. Even after we got married, he was kind. About a month ago, when my mother called to say that my father was not feeling well and was going into the hospital for tests, Victor stayed close to me, who was surprised and upset, and drove me there because he was worried. At that time, the test results had not yet come out, and my father said with a smile, "Sorry to worry you, I've just been busy and tired recently. However, that weekend, we were asked to gather at my parents' house. My brother's family, Victor and me, and my still single younger brother. This was the first time we had all been together since our wedding. A bad premonition crossed my mind, and sadly, it was correct. My father had cancer metastasis, and it was already at a stage where surgery was not possible. Really, I was surprised. They told me the test results would come in a week, but actually, they called me the next day. I received a life expectancy announcement. He spoke bravely, and my mother stood beside him, holding back tears. No way. I couldn't stop my tears, and Victor gently put his hand on my shoulder. My brothers also had faces of disbelief and could not immediately find words to speak. Even so, I'm not dying tomorrow. There's a lot I still need to do, not just for the house, but as the head of the company. I'll need a lot of help from you guys. It seemed he was mainly speaking to my elder brother. And Victor. My father then addressed my husband, who was comforting me. I'm sorry that this has happened when you're newlyweds. Please take good care of Jenny for me. Of course, father. If there's anything I can do, just tell me. Moved by their words, I shed tears again. Due to my father's strong wishes, he decided to receive palliative care at home instead of being hospitalized. Fortunately, the medication worked well, and his willpower was strong. At first, he spent little time in bed, and my mother would say, "It's hard to believe he's seriously ill, he's moving around so much." He discussed the situation with secretaries, executives, and lawyers and continued to handle what needed to be done. My mother was of course devoted, and my brothers supported my father both personally and professionally. The heir, my elder brother, had built a house near our parents' home after getting married, and my still single younger brother was already living at home. I would visit my parents' house as much as possible after work, always rushing there on weekends. Victor joined me on the weekends, and on weekdays when I stopped by, he would tell me not to worry about cooking dinner. I was grateful for his support. One day, when I returned home after visiting my parents, he had already come back, and I could hear voices from the living room. Was it a phone call? I quietly entered the living room. I'm saying, probably soon. He won't last much longer. I thought I heard that and my heart pounded. What was that? What did it mean? Wow. Startled by my entrance, Victor exclaimed loudly and hastily ended the call. Oh, you're back? Yeah. Hey, who were you talking to just now? What were you talking about? It wasn't about my father, huh? What are you talking about? Of course not. I was talking about a game with a friend. Remember him, the gamer? But I heard something about not lasting long. He's in a gaming tournament. Apparently, he's struggling, and he was saying his opponent is about to run out of items and is in trouble. I see, sorry, I thought you were talking about my father and really got scared. Jenny. He gently grabbed my shoulder. It saddens me to be misunderstood like that. I'm worried about your father too and still wonder if there's a way to cure him. He said earnestly. Right, sorry, you are always so kind. I just came from seeing my dad, and I guess I was feeling down. I haven't been eating much lately. I see. I'm sorry you're going through this, and there's nothing I can do. But it's not good to always look so gloomy. Maybe you should go out for coffee with friends sometimes. You're right. Relieved by his behavior, I felt guilty for doubting such a kind person. And a month later, despite our family's hopes, my father passed away. My mother, brothers, and I made it in time for the last goodbye, which was a consolation. With so much to do one after another, there was little time to mourn. From the wake to the funeral, and at the company, my brother's appointment as president and the new structure that came with it, there was a lot to do. There was also talk with trusted senior executives, and no one opposed my still young brother's appointment as president. There are many people who will support us. My mother also felt relieved. My brother's character, and originally my father's serious care for the company and its employees, had its rewards. The next weekend, settled for the moment, the family gathered under the guidance of our consulting lawyer. The main topic was inheritance. It was announced that the 3 children would share the inheritance equally. The amount was approximately $3 million. I noticed Victor gasp next to me. I was surprised by the staggering amount, grateful, but I wished more than anything that my father could have lived longer. There was also talk about the company's rights and land, and it was decided to continue this discussion next time. Exhausted by the difficult conversations, when I got home, I told my husband, "I'm going to rest a bit," and headed to the bedroom. Yes, rest well. About the inheritance discussion earlier, since no one opposed, does that mean it's decided? I think so, but why do you ask? Well, I was just surprised because the amount was larger than expected. It feels overwhelming. Yes, I was surprised too. Saying that, I entered the bedroom and lay down, feeling uneasy about his words. Larger than expected? I was vaguely thinking about it when I seemed to have dozed off a bit. I woke up and quietly headed to the living room. It's true, seriously. It's $3 million. No mistake. Wow, that's amazing. Well, it's fine. How much I've struggled and... Oh. Well, she's waking up, so I'll hang up now. Bye. Who? I asked him, trying to contain my turmoil, as he had been on the phone. It was my mother. She was worried about how you are, asking if you've started to feel a bit better. I see. Well, and, she wants to come over this weekend. Apparently, there's a new cake shop that opened, and she wants you to try their cakes. Sure, that's fine. Maybe I'll buy some nice coffee then. I smiled as I spoke, and he nodded happily. A definite suspicion had formed in my mind. The day before my mother-in-law was to visit, I stopped by my parents' house. Mom, how are you? Have you calmed down a bit? Yes, you don't have to visit so much. Amy also always comes by to check on me. Are you eating properly? Amy is my brother's wife, who is reserved but firm and caring. She was devoted to nursing my father and supported my mother during the funeral. I think my brother really married a wonderful person. Yes, don't worry about me, but actually, I have something I'd like to discuss. What's the matter? There's something that's been bothering me. As I drank the coffee my mother had made, I began to share my suspicions about Victor. The next Saturday, my mother-in-law arrived. She had attended my father's wake and funeral, and this was the first time we'd seen each other since then. Jenny, it's really unfortunate about your father. I brought some delicious cake to cheer you up even a bit. Thank you for your kindness during that time. Please come in. Let me make you some coffee. Oh, thank you. As the 3 of us were eating cake, Victor broached the subject. So, about the inheritance. Yes? Could you transfer the $3 million to my mother's account? What? It was a conversation that went far beyond what I could have anticipated. I was momentarily stunned. I don't understand what you mean. $3 million is a lot of money, isn't it? It's unsettling to have it, right? You're part of our family now, so I think it's best to transfer it to my parents' account. What? I couldn't understand at all. Are you asking to borrow some money? Like for a car or something expensive that's needed? Borrow? What are you talking about? It's our money now, my family's. Victor suddenly burst into laughter. My family's? Of course, the family Victor was born into and grew up in. Jenny, you've married into our family, so your money is our money, isn't it? The mother-in-law continued with a smile. I'll manage it properly for you. You can ask if you need something, but you have your salary, so you'll be fine, right? Wait a minute, I don't understand what you mean. Even if you say it's our money as a couple, why does it become your money? Because that's just how it is, it's our money now. Naturally, that includes my mother too. What? What are you talking about? Oh, don't worry, your family too, of course. First, we can build a big duplex house and buy a car, huh? We've got $3 million, so it's easy. Oh, Victor, you're getting ahead of yourself. But yes, I do want to get started on the duplex soon. Well, that's the situation, so transfer it to my mother's account now, will you? Please, Jenny. A daughter-in-law's money is our money. I was stunned by the true nature of these two. Far from a sliver of hope, it was worse than I could have imagined. Victor, did you marry me for my family's wealth? Huh? I really do love you. But it's Jenny with the wealth. When I heard you were a lady and started dating, it turned out to be a much bigger company than I thought, so I decided right away to marry you. That's right. I welcomed it too, and Victor has always cherished you, hasn't he? Was it all just to get my family's wealth? Oh, don't make such a scary face. When you marry, you become part of the husband's family, so it's natural to transfer the wealth, right? Well, it was lucky he got sick right after you got married. I was really surprised. I planned to cash in big time in the future, but I never expected him to go to heaven so soon. How terrible. Are you saying you were hoping my father would die? My body wouldn't stop trembling. He got cancer on his own, didn't he? If there's no saving him, it can't be helped. I just prayed he'd find peace soon. Yes, it's better for him to pass away quickly and leave the inheritance to his children than to suffer for a long time. Victor certainly had always treated me well. That's why I could believe it was a misunderstanding when I heard unbelievable words over the phone. I was deceived by a brilliant performance. Thinking back, a seed of doubt had sprouted in me at that time. But I thought it was natural for someone to get a bit carried away or expect some luxury when marrying into a wealthy family. However, this was not just any talk. Unforgivable, these scoundrels. Holding back my rising anger, I said. First of all, the money hasn't even entered my account yet. I can't transfer it. I've been told the procedure will take about another week. What? I thought it had already been deposited. Hurry it up. Well, but it seems you understand, Jenny. You're smart. Once the money is in, hand it over to me and leave the rest to me. Right, I'll give you my mother's account later. Transfer it as soon as you can. Saying this, my husband tried to hug my shoulder. I didn't even want to call him my husband anymore. I slipped out of his grasp and somehow kept my composure. Please come back next week. When I said that, my mother-in-law replied with a smile. All right. And left. And then the day came. I was going to make these vile people, who rejoiced at my father's death and aimed to seize his inheritance, realize their mistake. As soon as they barged into the house and took their seats, my mother-in-law spoke up. Jenny, has the $3 million been deposited? Have you transferred it to my account yet? Let's celebrate with steaks or barbecue tonight. Oh, that sounds wonderful. With $3 million coming in, I'll treat you tonight, Victor. Both were in high spirits. Of course, they thought they were about to get $3 million. Little did they know everything was about to turn upside down. Now, I have something to tell you. I smiled calmly. The process for renouncing the inheritance has been completed. What? True to form, the parent and child chimed in perfectly together. Their eyes widened in shock, were identical. What did you say just now? You said you renounced the inheritance. Yes, I renounced the inheritance. Stop joking. You wouldn't do such a foolish thing. Exactly. Who in the world would willingly give up $3 million? Well, normally, no. People often renounce inheritances when the debts outweigh the assets. Right, it's unthinkable not to accept an inheritance when there are no debts. The mother-in-law shrieked, her face twisted like a demon's. How scary. Oh, didn't you know? It's not so rare for heirs of family businesses to renounce inheritances to pass specific rights to a particular heir, to ensure stable long-term management. What? What did you do? She seemed at a loss for words. Well, of course, these greedy two wouldn't imagine passing money to someone else. In our case, my brother has taken over my father's position so suddenly. I plan to support him as his sister. But that doesn't mean you should give away the inheritance. You're being fooled, Jenny, used by your brother and his wife. Yes, exactly. Even the sister-in-law, she's after the wealth too. In their fluster, I snapped back coldly. Don't lump her together with you two. This was my decision. Both my brother and his wife said, you don't need to renounce the inheritance, and, she's a wonderful woman. If they told you that you don't need to renounce it, see, reconsider. I already told you, the procedure is completed. I will not receive the $3 million. No. No way. I have no intention of giving a single penny to a husband who rejoices in his own father-in-law's misfortune. Next to my pale-faced husband, the mother-in-law, also turning blue, suddenly looked up. Unbelievable. If the inheritance isn't coming, Victor, we need a divorce. We'll demand property division. What? I couldn't help but blurt out in astonishment. Of course, Victor did nothing wrong, and you renounced the inheritance on your own. Anyway, where's the proof that we rejoiced in your father's misfortune or that we were after the inheritance? We performed well at both the wake and the funeral. Such a quick talker. She even admitted to acting. If you need proof, didn't you just provide it in your words? Because no one else knows but you. Stop this foolish renunciation and apologize. Then I won't have you divorce. At that moment, a loud voice echoed in the living room. The one who should apologize is you. The calm male voice sounded, and the mother-in-law froze as she turned around. You. Why are you here? Dad. Victor was also stunned. There stood my father-in-law. I caught my mother's eye behind my father-in-law, and we nodded at each other. You've always been one to put on airs. You were so happy when Victor was going to marry Jenny, but I never imagined you were this kind of person. I couldn't believe that until I heard it with my own ears. Victor, you too. The father-in-law looked genuinely distressed. What? The mother-in-law and husband's eyes flicked back and forth in shock. It was last week that you came to Jenny with that foolish talk about handing over the inheritance. I heard everything you said at that time. What? You did? Everything has been recorded. Today too, of course. What? What do you mean? Victor shouted at me. You panicked a few times when I overheard your phone calls. You thought you'd managed to fool me, but I won't be deceived that easily. So, I set my smartphone to record when I heard your mother was coming. Indeed, the day before my mother-in-law was to arrive, I stopped by my parents' house and consulted with my mother and the lawyer. My mother was shocked, saying, "That can't be possible." But the reality turned out to be much worse, and I decided to renounce the inheritance immediately starting Monday. I also reached out to my father-in-law, who had not been around that day. My father-in-law, who used to enjoy playing chess and golf with my father, was shocked by his wife and son's outrageous behavior and kept apologizing profusely. I can no longer be with someone like you. You? No, this isn't what it looks like. Mr. Hansen was humble and had a wonderful human character despite being the president of a large company. I was happy to be his family and friend, but this is just. There's no excuse for their behavior. I'm deeply ashamed. He repeatedly apologized to me. Jenny, I am truly sorry. You can divorce immediately if you wish. Of course, I won't let anyone talk about property division or anything foolish like that. Hey, Dad. Quiet. Don't open your mouth anymore, you shameless person. If you have complaints, let's show today's and the other day's recordings to your colleagues and all our relatives. No way. My father-in-law took the last cool moment. But that's okay. When I spoke with my mother, my father-in-law apologized and cried, truly thinking of my father. With Victor and the mother-in-law speechless, their mouths agape, I said. That's the situation. Please leave. 1 month later, Victor and I divorced. The rumors spread among the couple who had introduced us, and it seems Victor lost all his friends. He was reportedly reassigned to a small sales office far away. Victor's parents also divorced. The mother-in-law, who had freely spent the father-in-law's money on luxury goods and dining out, was told to agree to a divorce if she couldn't pay back the money she had used. As a housewife and a spendthrift, she had no other options. I thought, can't she say I'll get a part-time job and pay it back, so please don't divorce me? Her inability to reconsider and try again with the father-in-law shows her true character. Well, it's none of my concern anymore. The inheritance I relinquished is being used as capital for the company. My mother, brother, and even my younger brother laughed when they said they would pass on part of their inheritance to me or suggested redistributing it again. Having such a family is more than enough for me. Dad, I wasn't wrong, was I? Having moved out of the apartment I shared with Victor and returned to my parents' home, I spoke to my father's portrait. It seemed like my father in the portrait smiled, and tears rolled down my cheeks. Today is the wedding day of my beloved brother. The sky is clear, and a comfortable temperature caresses my skin. It's a perfect day for our wedding. As I proceed to the venue in my wheelchair, the bride, Lucy, looks at me and says coldly, "Today is my big day. Someone as ugly as you, with scars on your face, should not be here. I'll accept your wedding gift, but please leave immediately." At Lucy's serious demeanor, my relatives could hardly contain their laughter. At that moment, Lucy's father hurried over to her and raised his voice. "Lucy, don't you know who that lady is?" "Huh?" The moment the truth was revealed, Lucy's face turned pale, and she was at a loss for words. "I am Maggie Davis, in my mid-30s and still single." "In my early 30s. My parents often asked, isn't it about time you got married, but recently? Such questions have rarely been heard. Even at this age, I still have little experience in love and don't really think about getting married. Right now, I am enjoying my work immensely. However, as I reach my mid-30s, many of my classmates are married and raising children. And my parents probably thought I would be doing the same. Besides my parents, there are others who care about me. One of them is my brother, Eric, who is 10 years older than me. Since there is an age difference, Eric has always taken good care of me since I was little and cherished me. Perhaps what people call a sister complex. Even so, Eric was concerned that his sister, who was past marriageable age, had no intention of getting married. He once said, "Maggie, don't you really like someone or have someone you're seeing?" If you're looking for a partner, I can introduce you to someone. What are you saying? Don't talk like Mom and the others. But isn't a woman past 30 the age most concerned about marriage? Well, I don't think so. Why are you suddenly bringing this up? Could it be that you have a girlfriend around that age? Oh, you caught me, he laughed. I learned that he had been dating, for about 6 months, a woman from a company he deals with. Her name is Lucy. She's turning 30 this year and wants to be a housewife. She seems ready to get married soon. Eric wanted to discuss with me how she feels about it. You know, I can't give advice on romantic issues, I sighed. Well, but you're closer to her age. So I thought maybe I could talk with you about how women feel. No good, huh? Eric chuckled wryly. It seemed he himself was uncertain about marriage. Well, if Lucy wants to get married and you like her, it should be fine. Yeah, right. Whether my advice helped or not, Eric decided to get married. Later, his fiancée, Lucy, was scheduled to come and greet our family. Eric also wanted me to meet her. Lucy likes cute things and dresses neatly. She's gentle-natured, the opposite of you, but I hope you two get along, he said. Hearing that, Lucy seemed just Eric's type, gentle and prim. However, something unexpected happened on the day Lucy came to our house. I was so engrossed in my work that I forgot that day was the day. My workplace is a separate building from the main house, across the garden from the living room. When I was working, the phone started ringing loudly. Since I often don't notice calls on my smartphone, important calls usually come to the phone in my workplace. Wonder what it is, I thought as I answered the phone. It was Eric. Maggie, do you remember what day it is? He asked, and I pondered. Oh no. Today is the day Eric's fiancée is visiting, I thought, holding the receiver. I opened the curtains of the large window facing the living room and saw Eric also holding a receiver at the window. A beautiful woman was standing next to him. He confirmed my presence and said, Maggie, you got caught up in your work again, didn't you? Sorry. I just forgot. I'll get ready now, so please wait a bit. That outfit will take an hour to change. We have various wedding arrangements later, Eric thought, and then our mother called him. Mom just called me. Can you talk to Lucy over the phone for now? You can see her from there, right? Eric handed the receiver to Lucy and then disappeared. Lucy, seen through the window, was wearing a neat dress and had her hair elegantly styled, looking demure. But I could tell she was staring intently at me. While considering this, I tried to speak. Nice to meet you, I'm Maggie, Eric's sister. Sorry, I wasn't prepared to greet you properly. If you could wait about an hour, I can come to you in proper attire. However, Lucy's voice over the phone sounded colder than expected. Proper attire? No matter how much you dress up, that face. Excuse me? I thought I had misheard. Eric had told me Lucy was gentle, but the impression over the phone was quite the opposite. Lucy. I heard he had a sister, but this is really shocking. Don't come here. It's disgusting. What? Eric seems to really dote on you, but you're nothing like I imagined. What? Even from a distance, I could tell Lucy was getting irritated. Is there something you're upset about? I tried to clarify. You're in a wheelchair. I can tell even from across the window that you have a flawed face. Lucy clearly looked down on my appearance. Well, this person might have some character issues. As I was thinking this, Eric came to call her. Lucy, the coffee is ready. come to the guest room. Eric took the receiver from Lucy and said, Maggie, you were in the middle of work, right? Sorry for interrupting. But you forgot today's plan, so that's on you. Anyway, you just greeted her briefly, right? No need to come all the way to the main house. Eric hung up, smiling and leading Lucy away. From this first impression, I didn't think very highly of Lucy. However, marriage is something done by the will of the people involved. And I thought it was fine if Eric wanted to marry her. But then, later, there was talk of meeting each other's families, but for some reason I wasn't invited. Wondering why, I asked Eric, and apparently it was Lucy's suggestion. According to her, I seemed busy with work. And she felt it was unreasonable to call me just for a meeting. Hearing this, Eric thought since we had already met and talked through the window at home, it wasn't necessary for me to come. While I think Eric considered my personality in making this decision, I felt that Lucy's thinking was probably different. It seemed like she thoroughly disliked me from our first meeting. Well, it's human nature to not mesh well with everyone. But, how appropriate is it to treat a member of the family you're marrying into this way? My doubts remained as wedding preparations moved forward. Regardless, if Eric is happy marrying Lucy, then that's what matters. However, if she's pretending to be something she's not just to marry him, that's a different story. By the way, when I asked him if he had mentioned my work to Lucy, he said he had. But from the way Lucy spoke, it seemed like there might be some misunderstanding. How did that happen? There was only one way to find out. I suggested a surprise at the wedding reception to Eric. Then came the wedding day. I brought Sherry, who always supports me at work, to the wedding venue. As I announced my name at the reception, the staff's expression changed. Could you please repeat your name? I'm Maggie, the groom's sister. I'm supposed to have a surprise part during the ceremony. As I said this, I had a bad feeling. Yes, the groom mentioned that. But the bride informed us that you couldn't make it today due to an urgent matter. The staff explained, looking perplexed. What? Lucy, who deliberately did not invite me to the meeting, was also planning not to let me attend the wedding? I asked the staff to call the bride. After a while, Lucy, dressed in a pure white wedding dress and perfectly made up, came over with a friend. Her friend was startled to see me. Hey, is this Eric's sister? Wow, what an outfit! I could hear whispering voices. I was in a wheelchair, wearing a black dress, and my face was hidden by a veil. Then, far from whispering, Lucy said loudly, anyone would be shocked to see such a figure, right? But today is my big day. I'm the star. I don't want a woman in a wheelchair with facial scars drawing all the attention. I have many friends here, and having you around would just embarrass me. Marrying Eric and having you as his sister is an unexpected blunder. Big blunder? That's right. Eric seems to dote on you, but it must be out of pity for your appearance. Lucy continued, looking down on me. Eric is handsome, and being married to him will make my friends envious. But with you around, they'll laugh at me for having a monster-like sister. Lucy was getting more agitated. I frowned as we exchanged words. Not only the staff, but also some of the guests began to gather around. I was bothered by the murmuring crowd. But there was something I needed to confirm with Lucy. Lucy, aren't you marrying Eric because you love him? Of course. He's handsome. We'd be the perfect couple. That's why I don't want a monster like you near Eric. Leave your gift and just go home. As Lucy spoke, there was a moment of silence around us. However, her words caused our family members who were present to burst into laughter. Then, Lucy's father rushed over in a panic. "Lucy, what are you saying? Don't you know about Maggie's job?" "What?" Lucy looked completely baffled. I decided to reveal my true self right then, though it was supposed to be a surprise. "Lucy, look at me," I said, and as Lucy looked at me suspiciously, I stood up from my wheelchair and walked confidently in front of her. "Wait, what? You can walk? What does this mean?" Lucy was visibly shaken. Standing face to face with her, our eyes met through my veil. She was clearly perplexed. Next, I took off my veil and touched my face, slowly peeling off what appeared to be skin. "Oh no. Monster." Lucy backed away, her face turning pale. I continued to tear off my scar, revealing it to be silicone artificial skin. "Lucy, this is my real face." "What? That is." Lucy stared at my face and the silicone skin in my hand, pointing at that with her trembling finger. "Oh, this? It's a modified face mask I made. I'm a special makeup artist." "Special makeup? So, you don't really have scars?" "That's right. Am I being deceived?" Lucy turned to her father. "Dad, did you know this? Of course, Maggie is a well-known artist in the industry. Didn't you listen when Eric talked about her?" "What?" Lucy still looked confused. It seems Lucy disliked when Eric talked about me and barely listened. "Lucy, what is this all about? I heard from the staff that you excluded Maggie from the guests. And what you just said." As he spoke, Eric appeared in a white tuxedo, looking very handsome. "Oh, well, it's my big day, right? I thought it would be sad if Maggie, in a wheelchair with noticeable scars, came and drew attention. Unbelievably audacious. Lucy, didn't I tell you about Maggie's job? When you saw Maggie working that first time, you didn't say anything. So I thought you understood. You weren't really listening to my stories, were you?" The disappointment in Eric's voice was evident. "What? I was listening. I just happened to forget that part. Don't lie. I heard the conversation part way through. Did you choose me just for my looks? And what you said to Maggie? I can understand his anger. But it's because Maggie's makeup was so incredible. I was just fooled by it. For some reason, she tried to shift the blame onto me. But for me, that was a welcome reaction. Thank you for the compliment. I was testing a new creation then. A client wanted a character of a woman in a wheelchair with facial scars. I always start by applying the makeup on myself to test it. I was really in a wheelchair. You misunderstood it through the window. But thanks to that, I could see your true nature." I smiled warmly at Lucy. The bride in her pure white dress glared at me with her bright red lips and fierce eyes. I felt amused. It seems fun to create such expressions with makeup. While thinking this, I expressed my sarcastic gratitude to Lucy. "Despite what happened, thank you for calling me a monster. It means my makeup was that realistic, right? It boosts my confidence." Lucy bit her lip in frustration, but she probably wouldn't bother with me for long. "Let's have the guests leave for today. We can't proceed with the ceremony like this." That's what Eric said after seeing the commotion around us. "What? Even though everyone gathered?" I dressed up beautifully. After this pre-wedding entertainment, let's just proceed with the ceremony. Lucy was eager to continue. But Eric was no longer in the mood. After hearing what you said earlier, I was honestly shocked. So, I want to rethink our marriage. We can't have the ceremony today. No way. Lucy looked like she was about to cry. Lucy, let's go home today. Her father urged her, and Lucy limped away to the back room. And the ceremony was cancelled. Later, Lucy and her parents visited our home to discuss what to do about the engagement with Eric. I was there, but Lucy wouldn't look at me. Funny, I'm not even wearing special makeup today. Eric, I'm sorry about last time. I must have been having wedding blues. Lucy tried to dismiss her previous disgrace with the excuse of wedding blues. However, Eric proceeded with the conversation calmly. Lucy, shouldn't you be apologizing to someone else first? You insulted my sister first, right? Reluctantly turning to face me, Lucy said, Maggie, I'm sorry for saying such terrible things. It was obvious her apology wasn't heartfelt. She quickly changed the subject. Eric, now that I've apologized, let's set a new date for our wedding. I think I'll change my dress. It wouldn't be fun to wear the same one as last time. I want you to see me in a more beautiful look. Lucy was clinging to Eric. Clearly, she hadn't reflected at all. But then, let's call off the engagement. He declared this as he pulled away from Lucy. Why? Are you still angry? I apologized properly to your sister. And I thought we could move past what happened before. That's not possible. I didn't realize your true nature until then. I thought you were kinder. Plus, you only like me for my looks, right? I can't marry someone like that. That's why I had your parents come over today to talk this through. What? Wait, Dad, do something. This is a business partner, right? Say we'll cancel the contract or something. Lucy clung to her father this time. However, Lucy, what are you saying? If they cut ties with us now, we'll be in trouble. Eric, Maggie, I'm sorry for the unpleasant feelings. We're okay with calling off the engagement, so please keep the contract as is. Oh no. Actually, Eric works for a major company. And Lucy's father's company is just one of their suppliers. If the contract were cut, it would be Lucy's father who would be in trouble, not Eric. Rejected by her own father, Lucy looked dejected like a small child. Just like at the wedding, she was dragged away by her parents. Later, I heard surprisingly that Lucy had gotten married. Her partner was the son of a business associate from a different company from Eric. Given Lucy's character, she probably couldn't admit to her friends that the engagement was broken. I don't know if she could brag to her friends. But her partner was shorter and much less attractive than Eric. After that, I asked Eric. Eric, are you glad you didn't get married? Yeah. Marriage is the starting point of building a family. And it wouldn't work out with someone who can't cherish themselves or their partner's family. It's good that we stopped the marriage at that time. Right. Well, I'm sure you'll meet someone nice soon. If you ever want to verify someone's true nature, just consult me, I said half-jokingly. Right, I'll count on you then, Eric replied with a smile. A few months later, I heard that Lucy had gotten divorced. After the marriage, she apparently wasn't satisfied with her partner. And spent a lot of money at nightclubs, which led to the divorce. Her attitude after the marriage was poor, and her partner was quite angry, terminating the business dealings with her father's company and demanding a substantial amount of property division. Lucy is now working in a bar in a bustling district, living in a shabby apartment. The irony of her serving drunk customers with a forced smile, after looking down on others, made me laugh. As for me, my newly tested makeup was a hit with clients, leading to a series of new requests. The makeup was a zombie bride look with a pale face and a pure white wedding dress, dripping blood from torn lips, and it was well received for its realism. This makeup was inspired by Lucy's expression at that time. Thanks to this, I've become well known as a special makeup artist. And now I spend my days immersed in the makeup work I love. Moreover, a movie using my makeup won an award abroad. And now I'm involved in a joint production with a Japanese company. I'm excited about what kind of work I'll create next. As for Eric, he hasn't felt like dating for a while. But there seems to be a good vibe between him and Sherry, who has supported my work for a long time. Given her gentle nature, she might be a good match for my kind brother. If they get married, I'd love to surprise everyone at the ceremony with movie-quality special makeup. This house was sold to the eldest son and his wife. Everyone else, get out now. In the face of unbelievable remarks from my in-laws and John, who are making me pay the mortgage on their home, I realized that they had been with me from the beginning just to make me pay the mortgage. The moment I realized this fact, my feelings changed from gratitude to hatred in an instant. Then, I'll be moving out. Facing their mocking remarks, I answered with a defiant smile. I'll make them regret picking a fight with me, all the way to the depths of hell. I immediately turned to someone for help and began plotting my revenge against the three of them. My name is Gina Kane. I am 48 years old and work at a law firm as a lawyer. Currently, I am supporting my in-laws and my husband while managing our lives. It all started when I gifted a house to my in-laws. John and I got married when I was 30 years old. When our marriage was decided, my father-in-law encountered an unforeseen accident. He injured his leg, making it difficult to stand on his own, and was forced to live in a wheelchair. Concerned about the elder care needed as my mother-in-law is also not young, I gifted my in-laws an accessible home. At first, they were considering living in public housing. But since they would be living midway between our workplaces, I suggested that we could come to help whenever needed. I want to repay the Kane family for all they've done for my father. My father had died before I got married. Just before he passed away, he was burdened with a large debt, and our household finances were in dire straits. To repay debts, I took on more debts, living a hellish life. John and his family saved us from this situation. John and his parents took on the burden of my father's debts. If you're hesitant to marry because of the debt, just pay it back, and it'll be fine, right? That's how our parents feel too. That's right. The company went bankrupt, and you incurred the debts. Not from playing around, so there's no reason not to help. That's right. When times are tough, we should help each other. There's no need to feel guilty or inferior. Saying this, John and his parents silently provided most of the financial aid. My father and I, in tears, expressed our gratitude. And I desperately took the lawyer's exam. The amount borrowed from John and his parents totaled just under $50,000. Once I became a lawyer and earned money, I could definitely repay it during my lifetime. I hated the idea of remaining indebted for financial support. I absolutely had to pass the exam and become a lawyer. With this determination, I worked tirelessly. Thanks to my efforts, I passed the lawyer exam on my first attempt. Naturally, I received congratulations from my in-laws as well. I immediately found employment and began working at a law firm. The director was a kind person, and the office had skilled lawyers in its ranks. I quickly improved under the guidance of my senior colleagues. Eventually, I met clients who contracted with me exclusively. And now I am a female lawyer with an annual income exceeding $100,000, serving as a figurehead for the office. As my work began to stabilize, I completely repaid the debts to my parents. My father, thinking he had no more regrets in this world, followed my mother, who had passed away earlier. After my parents passed away and I was left alone, John proposed marriage to me. "You are a strong woman who can live on your own, but I want to be a man who can support you. I will continue to cherish you, so won't you marry me?" Thus, our marriage was decided, and I thought a smooth sailing life would begin. However, just then, my father-in-law encountered an accident. Owing to the significant favor I had received in the past, I insisted against the hesitations of my in-laws and offered to build a new barrier-free house. The gratitude I feel towards your parents is not enough, even with this. So, please don't hesitate. I want you to live a life without any inconveniences. It was heartfelt, not flattery or pretense. I conveyed my true feelings. Perhaps moved by my passion, my in-laws reluctantly smiled and accepted my proposal. However, immediately after agreeing, they continued with a but. "Gina, why don't you live with us? You were looking for a house to live with John, weren't you?" "That's right. If you don't mind, let's live together. After we're gone, the house will belong to you guys anyway." John has one older brother. 3 years older, he had married and moved out years ago. Busy with his own business, he entrusted all home matters to John, as I had heard from my mother-in-law. In return for taking care of my in-laws, John was free to do as he wished with their property. Before marrying and moving out, his brother had verbally promised John this arrangement: if we could live in the new house, which would become our family home, the commute to work would be closer. Living together, we could be of help in case of any issues. And there was indeed no reason not to. However, living with a stranger like me might cause inconvenience to my in-laws. Despite the trouble I had caused even before marrying, I hesitated to agree, feeling anxious about whether it was okay for me to live with them. Sensing my hesitation, John put his hand on my shoulder and smiled reassuringly. "I will be your support. Everything will be all right. Don't worry." With those words from John, I agreed to live with my in-laws. I thought we would live happily as a family of 4 from then on. However, such a sweet life did not exist. "Gina, where did you put my morning clothes?" "Mrs. Gina, the TV remote isn't working." "Gina, can you lend me a shoulder? I want to sit on the sofa." After moving in together for 13 years, the people in this house have been telling me to do everything. They have no intention of doing anything themselves, and everyone asks me for everything. Even my father-in-law, taking advantage of his disability, has been freely touching me wherever he wants. I've already prepared and hung the morning clothes, haven't I? "Mom, that's the air conditioner remote, and the TV remote is on the desk." "Dad, please let John assist you when he's here, not me. I can't support you properly." Initially, I tolerated the dissatisfaction and handled everyone's needs. It's a joke to be burdened with both the mortgage and all the household duties. I thought about divorce many times. However, each time John skillfully covered for me, and my in-laws pleaded. My resolve wavered, and I refrained from divorcing. Finally, my mother-in-law possibly started showing mild cognitive impairment or dementia, though it's unclear which. John, who had always said he would be my support before marriage, turned out to be utterly unreliable. Can I really continue like this? With these doubts, I continued living, but as you experience things, you adapt. Before I knew it, I had adjusted to the environment, completed everything before being told, and became able to express my opinions clearly to John and others. However, I couldn't overlook my father-in-law's overbearing actions, and I complained to both John and even my mother-in-law. I just can't overlook what Dad does. Recently, he even pretends to be senile to touch me. Mom, please do something about it. My father-in-law has not been diagnosed with dementia. Specifically, he went for a diagnosis, but was not officially diagnosed with dementia. It's too mild to judge whether it's cognitive impairment or not, according to the doctor. Don't say that. It's because of his disability. Can't be helped. It's true that tendencies of dementia can cause such behavior. However, such things happen in more severe stages. As for my father-in-law's actions, he is just doing whatever he wants, using the word cognitive as a shield. Despite explaining that the doctor did not diagnose him with dementia, my in-laws stubbornly insist he has it, and conveniently use it to excuse any inconvenient behavior. If it were really dementia, I wouldn't say a thing. However, using illness as a shield to impose patience on others is absolutely unacceptable. I've also spoken to John, asking him to do something about his parents. But every time, he shows annoyance and brushes it off, saying we'll handle it later. I was reaching my limit of patience when something completely unexpected happened. This month it's all paid off. I'll finally be freed from this hell. One afternoon, when I was off work, I was organizing the household accounts and my diary. While looking at the bank book, I realized something that brightened my expression at the end of this month. The mortgage for the in-laws' house would finally be repaid. Filled with a sense of accomplishment, I felt as though a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. Thinking that I would now have a little more money to spend freely made me incredibly happy. But this was just the beginning of the real hell. Gina, was the mortgage payoff supposed to be this month? During dinner that night, John suddenly asked about the mortgage. He had never mentioned it before, so I was puzzled by his sudden interest. He smiled affably and poured beer into a glass for me. Yes, but why do you ask all of a sudden? Well, shouldn't we celebrate? I've put a lot of pressure on you up until now. Gina. I mean it as a thank you, and I want to have a big celebration. I was taken aback by his unexpected words. I was surprised that John thought this way, and that he was aware of the burden he had placed on me. I thought to myself that he could have helped more with the housework. But it seemed he had his own thoughts about everything. Any dissatisfaction I felt vanished in an instant with his words. And I couldn't help but smile broadly. John, thank you. Can I look forward to the celebration? Of course. I'll discuss it with my parents and start preparing. Just look forward to it, Gina. Without any doubts, I accepted his invitation. It seemed he had already discussed this with his parents, and the three of them started making preparations. A few weeks later, I was summoned by John and his parents. It was a calm period at work, and I had some free time, making it a good time to be celebrated. Sorry for calling you out of the blue like this. That's totally fine. Today, we, as a family, have something important to discuss with you, Gina. Discuss? I thought it might be about the celebration. But why would they phrase it so ominously? Normally, they would just say it straightforwardly. With these doubts, I listened attentively to their conversation. Actually, along with the mortgage repayment, We'd like you to move out of the house, Gina. Huh? At their unexpected words, I blurted out in shock. Leave the house along with the mortgage repayment? What am I being told? Could it be a misunderstanding? Even if I wished it were, the statement wouldn't be unreasonable. I couldn't quite grasp what John had said, leaving me utterly dumbfounded and unable to respond to his question. Seeing my stunned reaction, my in-laws, growing impatient, quickly continued speaking. We sold the house to the eldest son and his wife. What? I couldn't understand at all. Just as I was told to move out. Now they say the house has been sold to the eldest son and his wife. They must mean I'm no longer needed, but such an unreasonable claim was unbearable. What have I done to deserve this? If we've given you such a fine house as a gift, then we no longer have any need for you, Gina. We only lived together with you until the mortgage was paid off because we had to. But now that we own the house, you're of no use to us. I had felt immense gratitude towards John's family. I had been so grateful to his family for helping my father. And me that I lived with them without complaint until today. But now, I realized it was all an act. They helped my father and me back then just to make me do something. They knew I was desperate to pay off my father's debt and become a lawyer. So they thought investing in me might pay off double. It was just a gamble. Everything was set up to make me buy the house. You were right to think that if you owed us a favor, you'd give us something big in return. Ever since we were dating, I've been doing this. And I never thought the investment would be wasted. Just going to check on Dad once made you so happy. And you'd give us expensive wine as thanks. What a gullible woman. That was before my father's company went bankrupt. Our family was fairly well off until then. John had targeted me from the beginning for my family's wealth. And he already knew I was aiming to be a lawyer. That's why he thought it was worth going this far. Unaware of all this, I completely trusted John and his family. How foolish. I felt disgusted with myself. That's why we planned this. If we did a favor for your father, maybe we'd get something big in return. As a result, a huge success. We got this fine, newly built house in our name. Once the mortgage is paid off, it's ours. We can do whatever we want with our own property. And you have no right to say anything about it, do you? It was hard to accept the inhuman statements of the three people. Everything had been planned from the beginning. For these 13 years, the three of them had been quietly waiting for this moment. They never loved me. Nor did they genuinely care about my father, they just saw him as a money tree. From the beginning, they had approached our family with this scenario in mind. Faced with this unbelievable reality, I felt like everything was going dark before my eyes. My emotions were plummeting into the abyss. This was truly despair. At that moment, the word despair perfectly described my state. I couldn't comprehend what they had done, thought, or were doing. That's why, strangers like you should get out now. You no longer have a place in this house. Of course you have some luggage, so right now is impossible. John, that would be too pitiful. Tomorrow. We'll give you until tomorrow. So, pack up your things and get out by then. This house now belongs to us, the Kane family. Oh, and we'll need a divorce too. There's no need to be married anymore, and I'm tired of your nagging. When you leave the house tomorrow, just sign on the divorce papers. The words Kane family weighed heavily on my mind. From the beginning, I was not treated as a member of the Kane family. That's why they treated me so unfairly, worked me like a slave, and made me juggle home and work like a workhorse. As all the pieces finally connected, a dry smile spilled from me. From the beginning, I was deceived by your family. That's what I've been saying. Are you that stupid? Can't you understand even that? John's last words seemed to snap something inside me. I lifted my bowed head, feigned a full smile, and gave my in-laws a surprising reply. Then, I'll be moving out. Suddenly displaying a bright smile, I casually agreed to leave the house, leaving John and my in-laws with shocked expressions. Wow, you're being surprisingly obedient. What are you plotting? Plotting? That's impossible. This sudden, nonsensical story has knocked me down to the lowest point of my life. That's why my love for your family cooled off instantly. I'll pack my things and leave today. I will also sign the divorce papers properly. Later, I'll have someone from my office contact you about the division of property. Thank you for everything up to now. After saying this, I didn't wait for a reply from my in-laws and rushed to my room. I suppressed the urge to cry as I packed, thinking about what would come next. I can't let them get away with treating me like a rag. I must make them experience the pain they've inflicted on me. Otherwise, I'd regret it when I die. While packing, I decided on revenge. And to really hurt them, I pondered what could be done. As I was packing, a phone call came in. Seeing the caller's name, I came up with a plan. This person might be able to help me. The moment I thought that, I answered the call and confided everything to them. We discussed the next steps and agreed to put the plan into action immediately. After finishing packing, I left the house where I had lived for many years without saying goodbye to John and his family, and I immediately deleted their contact information. I set things up so they couldn't reach me, and it worked right away. The day after I left the house, I received a barrage of calls from my in-laws. Although I had deleted their contact, my brain naturally remembered the familiar numbers. Seeing those unwanted numbers first thing in the morning was disheartening. They must have realized what had happened to them by now. But I did not answer their calls. Like watching from a higher ground, I looked down at my phone and smiled. "You don't ever have to answer," said the person who had taken me in, speaking kindly to me. I nodded to them just once. Then, calls from John started coming in. Overwhelmed by the noise, I reached my limit, turned off my phone, and never turned it on again. I canceled the service. Several months later, I found a new apartment and started living there. I handled my work smoothly and enriched every day without the stress I had felt while living at my in-laws' house, free from the environment that had been a burden on my life. After the divorce, people told me I looked healthier, more beautiful, and brighter, and I received more compliments on my approachability. Previously, my mind had been so preoccupied with my in-laws' house that I hadn't had time to socialize properly at work. From now on, I'm going to work harder. I'll communicate more with everyone. I'll value my relationships with people. It was then that something happened. The receptionist at my office rushed onto the floor, her face pale, and spoke to me urgently. "Ms. Walters, there's a parent and child at the reception yelling for Ms. Walters to come out." Walters is my maiden name, and my current surname. Normally, she handles her duties coolly and amiably, so it must be something serious for her to be so upset. A concerned male colleague offered to accompany me, and as we headed to the lobby, I saw the person there and my expression hardened. There she is. "Mom, I found Gina." "Gina? What do you mean by this? Cutting off contact is cruel. Do you have any idea what we've been through since then?" The people who had come were my mother-in-law and John, and they were shouting throughout the office. Their nerve to act so shamelessly had me doubting their sanity. And their disgraceful behavior drew disgusted looks from everyone around. In just a few months without seeing them, their faces had become gaunt. And they glared at me with bloodshot eyes. Sensing the gravity of the situation, another receptionist seemed to have gone to call someone higher up. And soon after, the president, having heard the commotion, appeared in the lobby. "Ms. Walters, I have prepared a reception room. Why don't you talk to your in-laws there? I will contact him." Since I had confided everything to the president beforehand, I nodded to his suggestion. I felt uneasy going alone with them, so I asked my colleague to accompany me. He was the lawyer I had hired for the issue with John. So John and his parents agreed to his presence. We all headed to the reception room. Even as we walked to the reception room, John and his mother glared at me resentfully. Despite their own desperate situation, they seemed to dislike seeing me enjoying my work carefree. Their gazes and demeanor made it abundantly clear how much they disliked the atmosphere. As I sat facing John and his mother, continuing our stare down, a person came into the reception room with the president. "Sorry, I'm late." "What? Why is my brother here?" The person the president brought was John's brother, my brother-in-law. He stood imposingly, glaring at the two with an angry expression. "There's no crap here." "You two, how dare you pull such a stunt?" My brother-in-law had been a tough guy since the old days, and when he was younger, he was the leader of a biker gang that controlled this area. Now, he runs his own company in the construction industry. His employees affectionately call him boss. And he despises behavior that strays from human decency. I had sought help from my brother-in-law for this situation. And he was furious when he heard the circumstances. He had sheltered me in the female dormitory of his workplace for several weeks, taking care of me until I found a place to live. He had also checked on the house that was given to my in-laws. My brother-in-law had been unaware of everything until I informed him. The reason my brother-in-law hadn't known about any of this was because my mother-in-law and others had declared that they had sold the house to the eldest son and his wife when they told me to leave. The reason he didn't know. I had Sandra spill the beans and checked everything out behind the scenes. They've done such a terrible thing to Gina. They don't think they can get away with it, do they? The moment Sandra's name was mentioned, John and his mother's faces turned pale. Sandra, my brother-in-law's wife, was the mastermind behind this whole series. As the wife of the eldest son, she had despised me for some reason since a long time ago. She had been a housewife all her life, following her husband's orders not because he demanded it, but because her parents had taught her that a woman's place is in the home. Living with the belief that women who can't manage household chores aren't real women. She had lived her life according to that principle. But how must I have appeared to her? My vibrant dedication to my work must have been dazzling to her, overturning nearly 40 years of her fixed beliefs. Moreover, Sandra was disastrously bad at cooking. Even my father-in-law had studied cooking and had asked my mother-in-law to teach her, which John had told me about, indicating just how poor her skills were. However, I am someone who can manage household chores normally. Moreover, I was able to handle housework better than Sandra while also balancing my job. She must have been envious of me, who could do everything. Every time we met, Sandra would make snide remarks to me. She would say things like I neglected my home because of my job or call me a wife without gumption for making her husband do household chores. I had been subjected to such nasty comments countless times over the decades. But each time, my brother-in-law had stopped her. Surely, that too was a source of displeasure for Sandra. My brother-in-law had even told her she could go to work if she wanted to. And he contributed to the household chores himself. It was her own decision not to take action. And it was entirely misplaced for her to lash out at others for that. When my brother-in-law lectured Sandra about this, she began to detest me as if taking her frustrations out on me. When I confronted Sandra, she confessed that the whole plan to take over the house and make me buy it was orchestrated by her. She had instigated our parents into this plan, thinking that if they owned the house and pretended to be senile, Gina wouldn't be able to say anything to them, thinking it safe to contact my brother-in-law while I was unable to do so. Everyone did as they pleased. John had also been paid a role in this affair, making everyone accomplices. The only one who had been completely unaware was my brother-in-law. If he had known, such foolishness could have been stopped. I believe he feels terribly sorry about this whole situation. I see. That's why everyone behaved themselves in front of you, Big Brother. Every time my brother-in-law came to the house, my in-laws did not dare to do anything. They probably knew what would happen if he found out about their actions. The president and my colleagues listening to the conversation were also appalled by how my in-laws were behaving. So, what should we do with you? We're not planning to forgive a single thing. Not the disgrace you brought upon us, nor the trouble you caused Gina. But this all started with Sandra. That's right. We just got carried away by her convincing talk. We didn't mean any harm. No harm, you say? Hearing John's words, my patience snapped. I stood up abruptly, my face contorted with rage, and shouted at my mother-in-law and John. You think no harm intended excuses what you did? Do you have any idea how I felt these past 13 years, staying by your side? As I vented the feelings I'd been suppressing, tears of anger and frustration spilled out. Neither my mother-in-law nor John had ever seen me cry. No matter how harshly they treated me, I endured and persevered. Even when I was accused of dementia and harassed at will, I never showed any tears. I lived through it all. They probably thought of me as a strong woman who never cries. Seeing such a person raise their voice and shed tears must have been shocking for them. Do you even understand how grateful I was to you all? How much I thought I owed you a debt of gratitude. To find out that your kindness was for such a vile reason. I can't forgive you. I will never forgive you. As I spoke, my brother-in-law called someone into the conference room, and a man in a black suit entered. He sat on our sofa and stared intently at my in-laws. We're going to thoroughly strip you of your assets. What? In a daze, my mother-in-law let out a bewildered cry. This gentleman is the lawyer my brother-in-law hired for me. He's a well-known sharp lawyer in our firm, almost like a mentor to me. Including all the injustices you've inflicted, we're going to demand compensation. What? That's too late. How many months do you think have passed since then? Time doesn't matter here. The lawyer interjected, adjusting his glasses and fixing them with a sharp gaze. Based on the physical evidence at the time, and our reasons for wanting to claim compensation, it is possible to make a claim. As far as this case is concerned, there was no agreement made at the time of divorce to refrain from claiming money. Therefore, there is no specific deadline to file a claim, making it possible to pursue compensation. Furthermore, the lawyer then pulled an SSD from his pocket, leaving my in-laws blinking in confusion. What's that? This is a record of all the abuses your family has committed against Gina, stored as data from the camera attached to her PC for remote meetings. Upon learning this, My in-laws' faces turned pale. Gina often worked in the living room, where modern laptops typically have built-in cameras. You unknowingly harassed her there, which has now turned against you. The lawyer promptly put the SSD back into his pocket and continued with a cold look. The property has already been transferred back to Gina's name. Your eviction is only a matter of time. We will arrange for legal action soon. Please prepare the money. Wait a minute. You changed the title. John's reaction, almost reflexive, was immediately addressed by my brother-in-law. I told Gina to transfer the title to her. Thanks to you changing it to Sandra without asking, we were able to make the switch smoothly. Do you have any complaints about that? As my brother-in-law confronted him with a menacing smile. John, who had never won a fight against him since they were kids, couldn't muster a response. My mother-in-law, too, remained silent. We'll also be billing you for the expenses incurred from the transfer. It's only right since you caused this mess. We have to clean up the seeds you sowed. With arms crossed and standing authoritatively, my brother-in-law expressed his stern opinion. And neither of them could say a word in response. He had already informed Sandra in the same manner. And he had told me over the phone that he planned to divorce her once everything settled down. Despite not knowing anything, I'm terribly sorry for involving you in this mess, he said. I'll support you with all I can to make things right for you. Just tell me what you need. It's my family that did this, and I bear some responsibility too. If my brother-in-law hadn't reached out to me that day when I was packing, I might not have been able to do anything. I might still be suffering alone. Being part of that side, if I had no one to rely on, I couldn't have recovered like this. I never realized how much having even one person to support me could give me strength. I glared at the two of them, grateful for my brother-in-law's kindness and warmth, and delivered my final blow. I will never forgive you for using my and my father's emotions to fatten your own bliss. No matter how much you try to atone, I have no intention of forgiving you. If you come to the company again, I will definitely call the police. From now on, handle everything through my lawyer here. Do not appear before me ever again. Thanks to the president and my colleagues, who stayed as witnesses to the entire conversation. My in-laws had no way to escape blame. Shortly after, John and his parents moved out of the house. Considering the house they made me buy, the marriage arranged for that purpose, and the mental and physical suffering since the marriage, I really wanted to squeeze more out of them, he grumbled, feeling it was insufficient. But the lawyer and I agreed this was realistic, so that was all we could get. I shook my head, indicating that was incredible. Normally, even severe cases of psychological abuse fetch around $30,000. Considering the compounded offenses, the amount extracted was well above the norm. I was nothing but grateful. The house returned to my possession within a few days. It seemed my brother-in-law supervised the removal of furniture and appliances, and I was able to retrieve everything successfully. I am now offering the place as a rental property. It's still too large for me to live in, and being well located and barrier-free, it seemed wasteful to leave it unused. Following advice from my brother-in-law, I decided to rent it out. As per his declaration, Sandra is living a restricted life until she repays her debt. She is forced to work from morning till night. And my mother-in-law and John are in the same condition. My father-in-law couldn't participate due to his disability, but his pension is being garnished to pay off the debts. And it seems they are all living a hellish life. I felt relieved to know I could rely on my brother-in-law. Years have passed since then. I continue to work diligently as a lawyer. Thanks to my brother-in-law, the monthly payments have been made without fail, and the debt is expected to be fully paid off the year after next. Despite having thought about ending my life numerous times during those hellish times, I persevered, and as they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I live my days grateful for each one.
You're no longer needed here, so please leave. Why would you say that? After all, this house is enough. I will be living here with my kids. Even though I bought this place with the money I worked desperately to save for 15 years. And I chose a spacious high-rise condo because the mother-in-law wanted to live with us. Yet I don't understand why she would say such a thing. Then my husband intervenes. Why the surprised look? Your role here is over. Thanks for everything until now. Are you serious? I look directly at my husband as I respond. I was reaching my limit in keeping calm as various emotions surged through me. Of course, I'm serious. If you don't like it, we're getting a divorce. Hurry up about it. Hearing that, I made up my mind. After all, my husband has been unemployed. It's disappointing to think what would happen if I divorced him now. And I wanted to disappear from this place as soon as possible. All right. If you say so, I will leave. Why not leave right now? I would be so happy not to see your face anymore. The two of them showed me the ugliest smiles I had ever seen. I felt no need to hold back against such a husband and mother-in-law. I wanted to make them experience hell immediately. And so, I sold the high-rise condo immediately. I am Kristen, turning 39 this year. It's been 4 years since I married my husband, Ryan. Originally, we were colleagues at the same company, but we weren't particularly close. The change in our relationship came about 4 years ago. Huh? Kristen? Ryan? I thought so. Long time no see. Why are you here? Actually, I quit my job today. What? Why? I left the company because the time had finally come to realize my long-held dream. You know I've been drawing comic, right? I finally got my debut. Really? That's awesome. Show it to me sometime. At that time, I didn't have special feelings for my husband. However, I was happy that he praised me. Later, I learned that after leaving the company, Ryan apparently started a business. I think the last time we met was in our 20s. And his career was going well. If you're okay with it, why don't we date? That's sudden, isn't it? I think we're compatible. Ryan's confession was unexpected, but it didn't feel bad. Plus, I was about to turn 35, so I was considering marriage. But I'm getting older, and I want to get married. Then let's get married. What? I was overwhelmed by how fast things were moving. Is that a no? Yes, please. Before I knew it, I had accepted his proposal. I agreed in a moment of impulse, and though I was anxious, it turned out to be an unnecessary worry. Thanks for your hard work. Here, have some coffee. Thank you. Are you pulling an all-nighter again?
Yeah.
The deadline is close. Don't push yourself too hard. Our married life and my work were going well. In fact, things were going so well that I wondered if it was really okay. Ryan understood my work and managed the household chores when I was busy. However, there was one thing that bothered me. By the way, how has work been recently? Oh, it's fine. I've had some time recently. Why do you ask? You've been coming home early recently, and you've been doing all the housework. I do it because I like to. Don't worry about it. All right. We used to talk about work, but I hadn't heard any work-related talk from him for weeks. I trusted that he was fine, so I didn't probe any deeper. Looking back, maybe that was a mistake. Before I knew it, nearly 4 years had passed. My work was going well, with discussions about turning my works into comic books and even animations. And I started to want a home of my own. I've been thinking about getting a house. What do you think? A house? Sounds good. Oh, but what's wrong? Ryan looked down, his expression apologetic. I braced myself for something bad. I know this is sudden, but could my mom move in with us? Your mother?
Yeah.
She's alone now, and I'm a bit worried about her. Indeed, since we lost his father 2 years ago, it seemed like she hadn't been the same. Almost as if there was a hole in her heart. I was certainly worried about leaving her alone going forward. Okay. But it might take a while to build a house from scratch. Maybe a condo would be better? Thank you. Just agreeing to live together is enough. You can do as you like after that. Then that's what we'll do. And so, between work, I visited various condos. Since we were going to live together, I wanted something spacious and comfortable. After all, there was also the savings I had accumulated over the past 15 years through diligent budgeting. A month after starting my search for a condo, I signed the contract for the condo today. Really? What kind of place did you choose? This one. I showed my husband the brochure for the condo I had contracted. I was confident he would be pleased. Isn't this a high-rise condo? Yes, it is. I thought we might as well. My husband probably hadn't expected me to choose a high-rise condo. He was surprised, but his eyes sparkled like a child who had just received a new toy. Mom will be pleased with this too. I hope so. With this, a new life with the mother-in-law was about to begin. And I felt a mix of slight anxiety and great anticipation. However, I would soon realize that it was a mistake as soon as we started living with the mother-in-law. Kristen, thank you for this. It's like a dream to live in such a nice place. It's nothing. I just did what anyone would. Things went smoothly for a while, but after 3 months, the mother-in-law's attitude changed significantly. Could you clean my room? My back hurts a bit. I'm sorry, Mother, I have work. Then the mother-in-law spoke words devoid of any previous kindness. Huh? Work? You just hole up in your room all day, don't you? And you leave all the housework to Ryan, right? That's something Ryan and I discussed and decided. Excuses, excuses. Just do it now, please. I couldn't understand why she had changed her attitude so drastically. The only thing I knew was that not following her instructions would lead to more trouble. So, I cleaned the room thoroughly as she demanded. Well, I'll be in the living room. Let me know when you're done. She didn't lift a finger to help and just relaxed in luxury. Frustration filled me as I wondered why I had to do this. It's all done. Finally. Can't you do something as simple as cleaning more swiftly? I'm sorry. Well, that's okay. From now on, please do it regularly. In the end, the mother-in-law went back to her room without thanking me, leaving me to seethe with anger. However, I restrained myself, thinking that any rebellion would only lead to more complaints. Then, I reported the incident to my husband. My mom did? Why? Okay, I'll talk to her too. Really? I can't be too forceful myself. Don't worry. Leave it to me. Relieved by his words, I felt reassured. Indeed, from the next day, the mother-in-law no longer treated me harshly. I thought I could now concentrate on my work as usual. That was until I returned from a meeting a week later. I'm home. As I opened the door, I noticed unfamiliar shoes. Walking towards the living room, I could hear voices. By the way, where's Kristen today? Oh, she's at a meeting. But it's amazing, right? To become a hit comic artist at her age.
Yeah.
It is. Why do you sound so proud? It turned out that the visitor was Ryan's sister, Sarah. Just as I was about to open the door. Speaking of Mom, she's been quiet lately, hasn't she?
Ah.
Yes. It's funnier to let her feel secure and then knock her down suddenly. And Ryan, you feel the same, right? Because if she can't work, it's a problem. Kristen is our breadwinner, after all. Oh, that's true. I was frozen in place, devastated not just by the conversation, but by the realization that my husband and mother-in-law were conspiring together. What followed was truly a hellish time. Did you talk to her about that thing? About work? I didn't think it was necessary to mention it. You really are something. Sarah innocently asked Ryan, not understanding what was being discussed. I was curious to hear what Ryan would say next. What? What do you mean? Tell me too. Can't be helped. Actually, the company I was running went bankrupt right after Kristen and I got married. What? You've been quiet about that? That's the worst. I've had my share of troubles. But I got lucky. I never thought that suggesting living with Mom would lead to signing for a high-rise condo. I was surprised when Ryan told me. More than being shocked, I felt anger towards the deception. The thought of them living peacefully while hiding this from me even made me nauseous. I regretted never addressing the changes in my husband earlier. I thought about how I could not keep regretting this forever and considered when to leave. But maybe it's about time? Perhaps. About time for what? Well, that's for next time's fun. What? Unable to listen anymore, I swung the door open. They clearly did not expect me to return and froze like statues. What's wrong? I replied sarcastically, observing my husband and mother-in-law, who clearly were flustered. I nearly burst out laughing but managed to restrain myself. You scared me. If you were back, you should have said something. I did say I'm home, but maybe you were too caught up in your conversation? Well, it's fine. Kristen, come sit here. Let's have some coffee together. Yes, thank you. I then engaged in trivial conversation. It had been a long time since I had spent such a dull moment. About an hour later, Sarah prepared to leave. Well, I'm going to head back now. You could stay a bit longer. I would like to, but I have plans afterward. Well, if you must go. Let me walk you out partway. Sarah likely sensed my feelings towards the two. Perhaps that's why she wanted to escape the situation. As she was leaving, I held her back. Thanks for having me today. Did you enjoy it? Yes, I did. Sarah seemed fearful, perhaps worried about being scolded. Seeing her expression, I decided it was best to give her a warning. I wanted to say one thing to you, Sarah. You shouldn't trust those two too much. What do you mean? The conversation earlier. Understanding dawned on Sarah, and her face turned pale. My revenge was aimed at my husband and mother-in-law. I understand. See you later. From that day on, as far as I knew, Sarah never visited again. My days were filled with thoughts of how to exact revenge on the two. Then one day, As usual, I went to check the mailbox and found a letter addressed to my husband. The moment I saw it, I couldn't stop laughing, realizing it could be useful. I'm off to work. Have a nice day. How insincere. Suddenly curious about his whereabouts, I decided to follow him. Ryan killed some time in a park before heading to a casino. I took photos in case my husband tried to excuse his behavior later. Unemployed, yet he was doing this. Who made this awful meal? By that time, her harassment had resumed, probably triggered by our previous conversation. I was considering how to make her regret her actions. I made it, but my husband never cooked, and there was no one else but me who could have prepared it. How dare you make something like this? You didn't poison it, did you? You handle it. The audacity was almost refreshing. Of course, I was furious, but revenge took precedence over anger. Unable to think of a good plan, I decided to call my mother. I was scared of what she might say. But getting back at my husband and mother-in-law was more important. Hello. Mom? You sound down. What's wrong? Well, actually, I explained everything to my mother. I expected harsh words, but that wasn't what happened. So that's what it was. You've endured a lot. Her words nearly brought me to tears. But what should I do now? From what Kristen has told me, the condo is in your name, right? Yes, but... And it seems like those two really like the place. How about selling it? Sell it? I hadn't thought of that. I agreed with my mother's suggestion. Indeed, what would those two think if they lost the house? Life would surely be tough for an unemployed husband and his mother. Pretty good idea, isn't it? It is, but it's amazing how you can say that with a laugh. Well, it's up to you to decide what to do. After all, we are on your side.
Yeah.
Hearing you say that really motivates me. Contact me anytime. I kept thinking about the advice from my mother. Then, one evening after dinner while I was cleaning up, my husband said he needed to talk. As instructed, I sat on the sofa, but my husband and mother-in-law were smirking. I had a bad feeling about this. So, what did you want to talk about? Then the mother-in-law spoke up. You are no longer needed here, so please leave. Why would you say that? This house is. The mother-in-law cut me off, not caring about my irritation, and continued speaking one-sidedly. Enough. I will be living here with my kids. Why with your kids? That's when I remembered the conversation they had that day at the house. This must have been the fun the mother-in-law was talking about. Then, my husband chimed in. Why the surprised look? Your role here is over. Thanks for everything until now. Are you serious? I look directly at my husband as I respond. I was reaching my limit in keeping calm as various emotions surged through me. Of course, I'm serious. If you don't like it, we're getting a divorce. Hurry up about it. Hearing that, I made up my mind. After all, my husband has been unemployed. It's disappointing to think what would happen if I divorced him now. And I wanted to disappear from this place as soon as possible. I had been preparing for such a moment. All right. If that's what you say, I'll leave. Why not leave right now? I would be so happy not to see your face anymore. The two of them showed me the ugliest smiles I had ever seen. I felt no need to hold back against such a husband and mother-in-law. I wanted to make them experience hell immediately. I packed the bare essentials and left the house. The two of them saw me off, but I felt no sadness or reluctance. Since we're getting a divorce anyway, you prepare the divorce papers. Don't worry about this condo. We'll take good care of it. Without responding, I walked away without looking back. Let them say whatever they like for now. I decided to return to my parents' home. I'm coming home now. So, you've made up your mind? Yes. I'll be a bit of a bother for a while. Your father and I are waiting. Take care on your way back. At my parents' house, nothing had changed, and my parents were waiting for me. Seeing their faces, I felt a deep sense of relief. Welcome home. I'm home. It's been a while since you've been back, hasn't it? Rest up today. Thank you. That night, I slept soundly for the first time in a long while. The next day, I took immediate action. I prepared the divorce papers, and then I went to the real estate agent. It would be wiser to let go of the condo than to allow those two to live in it. Plus, if they ended up homeless while unemployed, it would indeed be hell. This is a popular condo, so I think we'll find a buyer soon. Is that so? Please take care of it. Leave it to me. A month later, the real estate agent contacted her, saying someone wanted to buy it. My husband and mother-in-law were still living in the condo. And during this month, my divorce had been finalized. We were now complete strangers. I had never looked forward to meeting those two unknowing people as much as I did now. The potential buyer would like to see the inside as soon as possible. Understood. Can I accompany you on the day of the viewing? That would be very helpful for us. Please do join us. Finally, the day of the viewing arrived. As she opened the front door, Ryan burst out. Hey. Who are you to just walk in here? And who are you people anyway? It seemed he hadn't seen me yet, so I stepped forward to reveal myself. Long time no see. Why are you here? Funny you should ask. After all, this condo is in my name. Huh? Clearly, he didn't understand the situation. Don't get it? It means this place isn't yours to keep. That can't be right. Then the mother-in-law appeared. I thought this was just perfect. Since they were both here, I decided to really put them through hell. Hey. What are you doing making a scene in someone else's home? Don't just barge in here. I could call the police on you. That's my line, actually. You have no right to live here. Saying nonsense won't help you. This house is ours. I couldn't help but sigh at their ignorance. Could you please leave? You're in the way of the viewing. A viewing? Why is that happening? Because I put this condo up for sale. Like I said, I bought this condo. So, the ownership is mine. My ex-husband seemed to be losing his grasp on the situation in anger. Even if what you're saying is true, where are we supposed to live? Why don't you go back to your parents' place? We had that house torn down because it was old. Oh, that's too bad. Don't mess around. Then my ex-husband tried to grab me. I dodged quickly, and he ended up falling over spectacularly. Everyone except the mother-in-law couldn't help but laugh at his misfortune. If you don't want me to call the police for trespassing, could you please leave? You're being a nuisance. I looked down at my ex-husband as I said this. He looked like he was about to cry. Finally realizing the situation, he then began to apologize. Of course, no matter what he did, it wouldn't sway my feelings. We were wrong. Please forgive us. Mom, apologize too. Why should I? Apologizing won't change anything. Can you just disappear from my sight? I won't ask twice. Then the ex-husband, pulling along his mother, stormed out. Watching them run off like sore losers, I felt an unexpected clarity and relief. The viewing went on successfully, and we decided on the contract. I told them to clear out any remaining belongings later. That was the last bit of mercy from me. Then, I got a call from Sarah. What's up, Sarah? It's about Mom and Dad. What happened? I was quite curious about what had become of them. It seems they are living in a tiny one-bedroom apartment now. That's why I told you. You can't trust those two. I've really learned my lesson from this ordeal. It appears Sarah believed my advice and had refused their request to live together. Which is why she wasn't present on the day of the viewing. From now on, keep your distance from them. Yes. With this, Sarah likely won't involve herself with those two anymore. But soon after, I received a call from my ex-husband. Just a little help. Could you lend me some money? Huh? That's your own doing. It's because you waste your days gambling and build up debt. You knew? A demand letter arrived for you, and you were lying about going to work. I had someone follow you. I'm working seriously now. But I have debts, and life is hard. That's not my problem. Oh, and tell your mother this too, serves you right. I quickly ended the call. They would continue to taste the hellish days ahead. As I pondered this, I thought it might be interesting to turn this experience into a comic for my next project.